Is there a sliver of hope of a possible conflict resolution emerging on the horizon as far as the Russia-Ukraine war is concerned? Even as the conflict between the two countries seems to be intensifying, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy has made a significant statement. He has said he intends to present a peace plan to US President Joe Biden and his two potential successors, Donald Trump and Kamala Harris. Stating that the war with Russia would eventually end in dialogue, Zelenskyy says it's important that Ukraine is in a strong position when that happens. While addressing the news conference, the Ukrainian leader said Kiev's 3-week-old incursion into Russia's Kursk region was part of that plan, but that it also comprises other steps on the economic and diplomatic fronts. Zelenskyy told reporters, "It would be fair to present our plan to the US president. The success of this plan depends on him. The main point of this plan is to force Russia to end the war, and I really want it to end on fair terms for Ukraine. If the plan is accepted and delivered, if these two elements work together, then we believe that our main aim will be achieved." While he did not elaborate further on the next steps, he did say that he would discuss this plan not only with Biden but also with Democratic presidential nominee Kamala Harris and Republican presidential nominee Donald Trump. Zelenskyy added that he hopes to go to the United States next month to attend the UN General Assembly in New York, and that's when he plans to meet Biden. Interestingly, these remarks by Zelenskyy come days after Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi's maiden visit to Ukraine. Prime Minister Modi reiterated India's well-established position that the only way to resolve the conflict is through dialogue and diplomacy, and that New Delhi is willing to play any possible role in efforts to restore peace and normalcy in the region. Mr. Modi stated that India was never neutral in this conflict but firmly on the side of peace. He also told the Ukrainian president that India was willing to offer all possible humanitarian assistance to the war-torn country. Upon his return to India, Prime Minister Modi spoke to US President Joe Biden and briefed him on his Ukraine visit. And he also spoke to Russian President Vladimir Putin about his visit to Kiev and the talks he held with President Zelenskyy. In the month of July, Prime Minister Modi had visited Moscow, where he held extensive talks with President Putin not only on bilateral issues but specifically on the ongoing war. India's message to both warring nations has been categorical. No solution can be found on the battlefield. This is not an era of war. India strongly advocates for peace and stability in the region. Peace can only be found through dialogue and diplomacy. The two sides need to engage with each other, and India is willing to offer full support and all possible assistance in the peace process. Crucially, soon after Prime Minister Modi's historic visit to Kiev, President Zelenskyy said he believes there should be a second international peace summit to discuss the Russia-Ukraine conflict, and that India could in fact host such a summit. And this time, Zelenskyy says he also wants Russia to send its representatives. The first peace summit was held in Switzerland in June this year, and while scores of countries participated, Russia wasn't invited. For now, the Kremlin has dismissed the remarks by Zelenskyy about his plan to end the war. It says Russia would continue what it calls its special military operation in Ukraine. Commenting on Prime Minister Narendra Modi's offer of help in the peaceful settlement of the conflict, the Kremlin has said the Indian side has consistently supported a settlement by political and diplomatic means, but at the moment there are no prerequisites for such negotiations. On the 19th of this month, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov had said that talks were out of the question after Ukraine launched a major cross-border incursion into Russia's Kursk region on the 6th of August. Zelenskyy has been adamant that Russia wants to dictate terms to Ukraine in any settlement of the war, something that Kiev sees as unacceptable. Putin has said any deal needs to start with Ukraine's acceptance of realities on the ground that would leave Russia with possession of substantial chunks of 4 Ukrainian regions as well as Crimea. Now, Ukraine says it controls more than 1,200 square kilometers of Russia's Kursk region. While on the one hand, Zelenskyy is now talking about a peace plan, on the other, he insists there can be no compromise with Putin. Dialogue today is in principle empty and meaningless because Putin does not want to end the war diplomatically. Zelenskyy added that the offensive into the Kursk region had reduced the number of governments around the world calling for Ukraine to make compromises with Russia to end the war and give up swaths of territory. In fact, the Ukrainian president even mocked Putin, saying the Russian president was prioritizing the capture of Ukrainian land over the defense of Russia's own territory. He pointed to the Kursk region, where Ukraine has claimed the capture of 100 settlements, while Russian forces continue to inch towards eastern Donetsk region in Ukraine. The Ukrainian leader also said that Kiev is continuing to make progress on its domestic weapons production and that it has conducted its first test of a domestically produced ballistic missile. Meanwhile, Russia has said the West is playing with fire by considering allowing Ukraine to strike deep into Russia with Western missiles. It has warned the United States that World War III would not be confined to Europe. With its shock incursion into the Kursk region on the 6th of August and by carving out a slice of territory, Ukraine has carried out the biggest foreign attack on Russia since World War II. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has said the West is seeking to escalate the Ukraine war and is asking for trouble by considering Ukrainian requests to loosen curbs on using foreign-supplied weapons. Lavrov said, "We are now confirming once again that they are playing with fire. They are like small children playing with matches. It's a very dangerous thing for grown-up uncles and aunts who are entrusted with nuclear weapons in one or another Western country." Since invading Ukraine in 2022, Putin has repeatedly warned of the risk of a much broader war involving the world's biggest nuclear powers. On the other hand, Zelenskyy has been urging the West to allow Ukraine to use weapons supplied by them inside Russian territory. He says because of the restrictions imposed by allies, Kiev cannot use the weapons at its disposal to hit some Russian military targets. He has urged allies to be bolder in their decisions about how to help Kiev in the war. However, Russian claims that Western weaponry, including British tanks and US rocket systems, have been used by Ukraine in Kursk. In fact, Kiev, too, has confirmed using US HIMARS missiles to take out bridges in Kursk. Washington says it was not informed about Ukraine's plans ahead of the surprise incursion into Kursk. The US has also said it did not take part in the operation. Moscow insists it does not believe Western assertions that they had nothing to do with the Kursk attack. Russian Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Rybkov has said the involvement of the United States is an obvious fact. Meanwhile, the UN nuclear agency chief, Rafael Grossi, visited the Kursk nuclear power plant on Tuesday. Moscow says the plant has been repeatedly attacked by Ukrainian forces. Grossi has warned that the situation at the nuclear plant is serious.